absolutely delighted to have you join us today. As many of you who are on the call today know, at the Alzheimer's Society of BC, we like to share dementia expertise from many different areas. And so today I'm really pleased to introduce you to two industry experts from Chartwell Retirement Residences. Jenny Squair is the Regional Business Development Manager at Chartwell Retirement Residences with 17 properties in her portfolio all across BC. She works with her teams at each location to develop and implement various partnerships within communities. And you might see her and her teams out in the various communities at events and fundraisers, bringing awareness and educating people on what retirement living is all about. Jenny is very passionate about senior living, seniors, and making their lives better. Marie Lashley is a director of regional sales with 8 properties in her portfolio that encompass all levels of care, including independent living, assisted living, long-term care, and memory living. She works closely with her teams at Chartwell to motivate and equip them to become leaders in their community when it comes to seniors issues and to be an advocate for positive change. Maria is very excited to be part of this presentation today, bringing her background in seniors housing to help to educate seniors and their loved ones on the supports available for them to promote quality of life and ultimately make their lives better.
Thank you so much, Lori, for that great introduction. We are very happy to be here and be your guest today. As mentioned, my name is Jenny Squair. I am the Regional Business Development Manager for Chartwell Retirement Residences here in British Columbia. And I'm joined by the lovely Marie Lashley, Director of Regional Sales for our Lower Mainland and Vancouver region. Every day we work within the community with older adults and their loved ones to educate people on the importance of caregiving and planning their senior living journey. What are the differences in levels of living and how each is affected by the different care needs of the individual and why it is important to communicate your wishes. We have been working with older adults in our community for a number of years. Our greatest advice for older adults and their loved ones is to have a plan and let someone know your wishes. And although we are from Chartwell today, the information provided is going to help you regardless of what retirement community you consider. So just to go over what we are going to cover today. So we're going to talk a little bit about caring for your loved ones, levels of support in retirement living, planning your transition into retirement living, and we will talk a little bit about helpful resources, which Lori will be, I believe, providing a document for everybody with the resources we talk about today. So some of you here today may be asking the question, am I really a caregiver or am I just helping my loved one? Well, first of all, let's just talk about who are family caregivers. Family caregivers are typically relatives, friends, spouses, or neighbors who provide assistance related to care. This can be assistance in the activities of daily living, house cleaning, grocery shopping, support with getting dressed, meal preparation, medication assistance or reminders, or support with banking, transportation to various appointments, etc. Let me ask you a question in order to best answer this. Do you ever feel nervous about the well-being of your loved one when they are home alone? Are you receiving multiple calls about the TV remote, electrical issues, dimming light bulbs, a letter in the mail? Are you running from work on your lunch break to provide assistance? Does your loved one have trouble remembering to take their medications that they have been prescribed? Do you find medication on the floor or still in a blister pack? Do you or other family members find you are often preoccupied with worries about safety, loneliness, mental health, nutrition, mobility of your aging loved one? Are there family discussions and disagreements about how your loved one should be cared for and how much time is needed to do so? Has your loved one experienced any challenges, including loss of license, accidents, decreased confidence, or trouble arranging for transportation? Has your loved one recently experienced a fall, perhaps, or a health concern and required hospitalization? If you answered yes to one or more of these questions, then you are most likely a caregiver. So just a few stats from Statistics Canada, that more than half of all caregivers, about 53%, age 45 to 54, provided care to a parent, and 11% caring for a parent-in-law, according to Statistics Canada in the most recent study, which was 2018. About 34% of caregivers over age 65 reported they provide care to their spouse or partner. Now, I'm sure some of you have heard of the sandwich generation. The sandwich generation would be adults who are providing dual caregiving responsibilities for children and care-dependent older family members. In 2022, more than half of women aged 15 and older, about 8.4 million women, provide caregiving, the majority of which is unpaid care. 1/3, about 32% of women, provided unpaid care to children, and almost 1/4, 23%, provided unpaid care to adults with long-term conditions or disabilities. Women are more likely to provide dual caregiving than men, about 7% versus 5%, and approximately 1 in 5 of them are working full-time as well. In 2022, 16% of unpaid caregivers of children or adults had to adjust their work schedule to complete their caregiving responsibilities. Further, 7% had to reduce their regular weekly work hours, and 5% were unable to maintain paid employment. So caregiving can be rewarding and can help the person being cared for immensely, but of course can be very challenging for the caregiver. Loved ones who support a parent report the added responsibility is a significant source of stress for them. 1 in 10 caregivers are spending more than 30 hours per week caring for their loved one, according to Statistics Canada. So let's talk a little bit about caregiver burnout and what is caregiver burnout. So caregiver burnout is, excuse me, is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. It may go along with change in attitude from positive and caring to negative and unconcerned. Burnout can happen when you don't get the help that you need, or if you try to do more than you were able, either physically, emotionally, even financially. Caregivers who are burned out may have fatigue, stress, anxiety, and depression. Many caregivers also feel guilty if they spend time on themselves rather than on their loved ones. Caregivers often are so busy caring for others that they tend to neglect themselves. Other things that can lead to caregiver burnout include withdrawal from friends and family, loss of interest in activities that you used to enjoy, feeling blue, cranky, hopeless, helpless, changes in appetite or in weight or both, changes in sleep patterns, getting sick more often, emotional and physical exhaustion, using alcohol or sleep medications more frequently. There can also be role confusion. You may feel confused as a caregiver. It can be hard to separate this role from the one of a spouse, a child, or a friend. There can be unrealistic expectations. You may expect your care to have a positive effect on the health and happiness of the person you care for. This may be unrealistic for patients who have progressive diseases. There's a lack of control. It can be frustrating to deal with lacking the resources and skills to manage your loved one's care efficiently. Unreasonable demands. You may take on too much, partly because you see providing care as your job alone. There are other factors as well. You may not recognize when you're burned out and get to the point where you can't function as well anymore. You may even get sick yourself. If you are displaying any of these signs, please do reach out to your family doctor or a professional for help. All right, so how to take care of me? Taking care of your own health actually helps you be a better caregiver for your loved one. You'll have more energy and be more relaxed caring for them. You can't help your loved one when you yourself are sick or ill as a result of stress. On our website, we have some fantastic blog articles by Dr. Amy Dupree. She is a social worker, facilitator, and coach that specializes in the field of life transition topics related to aging. We have provided her website and links to her helpful articles in the Helpful Resource Guide, which shares some best practices for taking care of yourself as a caregiver, challenges of caregiving, along with many other great resources. So let's review 7 ways to take good care of your health and reduce caregiver strain, thus positively impacting the health of your loved one. So eat healthy, exercise regularly, and get enough sleep. See your family doctor or other healthcare professionals if you have stress symptoms. Spend time with friends and family. Talk with people who have had a similar experience, or perhaps try a support group. Make time regularly for activities that you enjoy. Explore stress reduction techniques. Be realistic about what you can and cannot do on a daily basis. Ask for help from family and friends and use caregiver services. Consider respite care for your loved one. Take time away for yourself, maybe a vacation. So how do you know when you or your loved one is ready for more support? Many of you have done a lot to set your homes up, bring in support along with many other things, but what happens when that is no longer enough? Many times people will ask us, how do I know if I'm ready? And how do I know what readiness even looks like? And we do get that question all the time because readiness is as unique as each individual. We can only answer that question by talking about why people research options. People begin to research their options for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because of a diagnosis or loss of a spouse, or sometimes it can be a number of these things happening all at the same time, which will prompt a senior or their family to seek a better solution. Some of these more obvious changes may include a health crisis that ends up with hospitalization. Quite often, we will get a call from a social worker at the hospital or a family member about their patient or loved one who can no longer live at home safely. And there is a panic at the hospital to find an accommodation that will meet their needs before they are discharged. This is very typical in the hospitals on, say, a Friday around 11 a.m. or noon, when a medical professional will make their rounds and without warning will let the patient know that they are being discharged. This is based on the assessment from the transition coordinators or even the social workers, and then they will start to panic and call for options. This is why being prepared is the best option and provides peace of mind. Quite often, family members will notice medication mix-ups, which can lead to significant health issues and even hospitalization. An example of this could be after a holiday or family visit or celebration. This past Monday, we received a call from a family who had visited their aging parents' home and noticed the odd pill on the floor and the dates on the blister packs out of sequence. I know this happens with my Nana all the time. Some of the more common but subtle areas of change may include trouble with home maintenance. It may be causing stress, or there may be a lack of ability or desire to maintain the home altogether. Or you come for a visit and 80-year-old dad is up on the ladder cleaning the gutters. Or mom is carrying her laundry basket up the stairs on top of her walker. These are just a couple of dangerous scenarios which can be red flags to the family. Loss of driver's license, which can lead to a huge change in lifestyle, not only for the senior, but for the family, who now often becomes the primary source of transportation. Unpaid bills. Many times families will get calls from the banks or notice final payment notices coming in the mail. Growing impact on family caregivers. Many of you may already be in this situation where you are supporting a family member or aging loved one with daily activities such as grocery shopping, transportation to appointments, meal preparation, reminders for appointments. There's poor eating habits and nutrition, noticing maybe weight loss with your loved one, an empty fridge, perhaps. And then there's general loneliness. Maybe you're noticing this in your family with multiple calls on a daily basis, increase in frequency of visits, which is not a normal occurrence. On average, a senior considering making a move will be influenced by between 6 and 8 trusted people in their inner circle before they make a decision. This can be friends and family members, and also professionals within the community. Having the conversation and normalizing the change is paramount for a person to truly live their best life. And we have Marie up next. Marie is going to talk a little bit about the differences in levels of care and retirement living, as well as the cost of retirement living. I'll leave it over to you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and for that great information. So this is a question we get so much. We get it all the time, and I'm going to try and break it down for you today into, the different categories. But I'll just caveat that with saying there can be a lot of gray too. So, you might have a loved one that's not going to fit nicely and neatly into one of these categories. And that's where, a sales manager or a general manager at any of the homes can really help you to determine what the best fit is. And I just want to restate what Jenny had said earlier is that, these represent our different levels of care at Chartwell, but they also represent levels of care at all of the retirement communities, across BC and across across our province. We have the pleasure of working really closely with other retirement communities. And so all of the information today does reflect a very sort of broad view. So I just wanted to, wanted everybody to be aware of that too. So let's start with home care. Home care, there are a multitude of options for home care and home support, including private pay and government funded. Some of you and a lot of you may already be, have some of these supports in place, because quite often it is the first step, right, for many as they require more care. So with home care, again, there's private pay, there's government funded, and for the government funded home care support, it's quite easy to get access to that. It's a simple phone call to your local health authority to get that referral going. And actually anybody can make that referral. So the next, when it becomes clear that home care is not enough, there are 4 additional levels of care that can be provided in a retirement community. And these options really depend on the level of assistance that's required. So I'm going to give you each a bit of a brief explanation of the different levels and how each can suit the different needs for you or your loved one. And we want to encourage you not to get hung up on the classifications, because sometimes they can be used interchangeably by folks in the community who might actually not understand the definitions. We've even seen, some like healthcare providers get them a little bit mixed up. And so the best thing to do, again, is really speak to a representative from a retirement residence that you're talking to about the specific needs that you're looking for, and they can really help you to determine what the best fit is. So we'll start with independent living. So independent living are for seniors who still lead an active lifestyle. You can see in our little icon there, it looks like they're doing a little dance, but would rather not spend their time maintaining a home. And they would thrive in a community where they can socialize with peers, choose to participate in activities and outings that might interest them, and enjoy daily meals, and also housekeeping, right? So really some of those day-to-day things are taken away, that burden is taken away from them, so they can enjoy doing more of what they want. And there's also an independent living 24-hour support and 24-hour security, where each of the residents have a pendant, and there's somebody there all the time if something is to happen. So there's real peace of mind that comes from, in case there's an emergency. So the next level you can see here is assisted living. So I'll start by saying that assisted living services can be provided in a very specific assisted living community or suite, or assisted living services can be provided in an independent living suite. So it all depends on what community you're looking at. So these individuals will enjoy all of the same benefits as independent living residents, but do tend to need more support in carrying out daily tasks, or what we would call activities of daily living, or ADLs. Some of you may have heard that terminology. So they can take advantage of personal support services like medication reminders, assistance with daily routine, things like bathing and dressing, morning kind of routine support, and evening routine support, maybe coming down for meals. But it's activities that can be scheduled. And that's the big difference between assisted living and long-term care. These activities can be scheduled. It's not something that has to happen right away. So somebody that's okay with, you know, somebody coming in, giving them medication, say 3 times a day, getting them ready in the morning, getting them ready for their evening, and maybe bringing them down for a couple of meals, right? Something along those lines. So that's assisted living. And again, assisted living can be provided in some cases in an assisted living home with specific assisted living suites, or they can be provided in an independent living in a suite, and the services are given to them in that suite. So quite often, what's nice is if you're in independent living and all of a sudden you need more support, you don't actually, in some cases, have to leave your suite. You can stay in that environment that you're comfortable with, that you've gotten used to, and that support will come to you. And the support will come to you either through assisted living third party, say through a Fraser Health or a third party home care provider, or through assisted living, we call them HCAs, that are employed by the home. So I know it's a lot to take in, but just trying to lay a bit of a groundwork for you. So then the next stage we go to is the memory living. And memory living services are offered to seniors living with different types of dementia. So there's very caring and trained staff that are hired in these environments to support individuals that need, living with some cognitive impairment. So memory living typically has dedicated secure floors with their own staff, their own dining rooms, own activity lounges. So it's a very unique and special place where that support is, a lot higher sort of level of care. And you can feel secure knowing that, they're in that space and they're doing everything in a space that they're familiar with and that they become comfortable with. I will say, and some of you may already know this, is that with memory living environments, we don't have, there's not a lot of options, right? And across BC, we have more long-term care, but when we look at memory living, there are a handful of communities that offer a very specific kind of memory living environment. Okay. So, and then the next level of care, I'll just caveat that with a lot of times with the memory living environments, maybe there's typically not a very high level of physical support that's required. So, you may not even need help with bathing or dressing. You might just need some cueing. So it's higher in the support for cognitive, but lower in the support for any physical care. So then that next stage, long-term care, is where there's a lot of support with long-term care. So that support with, this is the unscheduled support. So these are individuals really needing around the clock, 24-hour medical support, as they have multiple complex physical and or cognitive needs. They may have some form of dementia and or physical needs that require more complex equipment, such as lifts, because typically in long-term care, transferring becomes an issue. Again, anytime where you're in a higher need of unscheduled type of care, where you need somebody, you know, right there, right when you need it. So these individuals need, you know, we call it nursing support. And again, support with bathing, dressing, sometimes eating and more. And they need to be in an environment with supervision, including an RN on staff 24 hours a day, and nurses, just to ensure their safety and well-being. So that's a little bit of a summary there for you, a lot of information in a short period of time, but we've got a few more slides here to address, you know, some of the cost. So we'll just quickly go over the differences between retirement living and long-term care, building on what I just said. So there's three main differences between, you know, retirement living or assisted living, we call it, and long-term care. Firstly, care support. So we learned from the previous slide, retirement residences are best suited for individuals who still consider themselves active and independent, but may need support with meals, housekeeping, and some personal support services, medication, or assistance with the daily routine. One of the main differentiating factors of long-term care are adults who require the 24-hour nursing support to help to manage the more complex needs. And then there's the security. So at a retirement residence, seniors can come and go as they please. They benefit, you know, from that 24-hour support and emergency response, but they really can come and go as they please. In long-term care, many and also memory living, those areas are secured, right? So the seniors can't kind of come and go as they please. Although, you know, there's always opportunity, of course, to go outside, go on different, you know, get out in the community, but in a safe and monitored way. And then the cost, and that's probably one of the biggest ones, is typically independent living residences are typically always private pay, meaning that they're not government funded. Where you find the government funding is in some cases assisted living, and then long-term care. So that's really the big difference there. But we'll talk a little bit more on the next slide. All right. So the difference between funded and private pay options. Again, you know, we could spend so much time on these slides, but hopefully this will give you a bit of an overview. So in BC, when you're assessed needing assisted living or long-term care, you may be eligible for funded care. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I will, you know, leave that to the experts at the health authorities. But I can tell you again, you know, it's always a fairly easy process to get things going, to get the referral going. And what they look at is they really look at the level of care that is needed. So, but funded care again is only partially funded by the government, meaning that residents do have to still cover part of the cost. And typically it is a percentage of your income. So it's 70, it can anywhere between 70 and 80% of your income. And it is up to a max, and there is a minimum. I'll say typically, you know, the minimum can be around $2,500 a month, and then there is a maximum. So they look at your, basically, it's very easy to assess. They just need a notice of assessment, and then they'll determine what you have to pay based on that. The big thing though is, and I saw a few questions kind of coming through that alluded to how willing are, how willing is a senior to get that care? And, in order to qualify, you really must show that you want and you're in need of the care. Because the lists are so long, if you set an assessment up and there's any kind of, if there's any hesitation to get that, they're not going to, they're not going to sort of fight, right? Because there's so many people looking for care. And so during that assessment period, it's important that, everybody's on the same page and kind of working in the same direction. All right, so next slide. So what does it cost? So we'll get into a little bit of the nitty gritty here. So this is such a common question, and it's a great question. So let's start with independent living first. So in BC, costs can vary significantly with different factors. And some of the bigger factors that contribute to the cost are location. So rental rates quite often mirror housing prices. And so, and regular rental prices. So somewhere like Chilliwack, you will find will be lower than, say, Vancouver. And then the suite size and type. So I don't know how many of you have been on a cruise, but with cruise ships, you pay a little bit more for the suite that's overlooking the ocean, right? And it's very similar with retirement communities. The price is going to kind of, it will vary on sometimes on the level, on view, location, all of that. And then the size, right? So our suites can range in size from studios, one bedrooms and dens, 2 bedrooms, and sometimes even like cottages or bungalows. So there's quite a wide variety depending on what you're looking for. And then, some of the services that you're receiving. So those are, some of the factors that contribute. Sometimes the newer the building, again, the area, and rates do range from about $3,000 to about $10,000 a month for independent living. So there's a real variety of rates. And, it's just a matter of kind of exploring the size of suite and the location, depending on what suits you best. These do often include meals, cleaning, activities, the 24-hour support like dependents, heat and hydro and kind of all of those utilities. Sometimes they include even like a phone and internet. So it does vary. And again, it's just about talking to that sales manager at the community that you're exploring to find out what it includes. But quite often, we try and make it easy where it's just sort of one rental rate and include as much as possible. But then any care would be in addition to that. So that's private pay independent living. And then we'll talk about a little bit about private pay long-term care. Private pay long-term care and private pay memory living too. So I'll include both of those in that. And this can range anywhere from about $7,000 to $10,000 a month. This includes everything, right, that your independent living would include, plus all of that additional care. So, I know those are just some numbers to kind of get you started there. And, Jenny will then talk a little bit about, costs of staying at home. So I will pass that right back. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you, Marie. Very, very good information there. Sorry, 1 second, my slide's not, oh, there it goes. Yeah, so speaking of cost, the cost of staying at home, there can be, of course, all sorts of costs, like maintenance and repairs and all those sorts of things. But then there's also cost of loneliness, cost of being alone when there's an accident or a fall. And I do have a few stats on falls here to share with you, because falls are actually the leading cause of injuries among older Canadians. Between 20 to 30% of older Canadians experience at least one fall each year, according to Statistics Canada. Falls result in 95% of all hip fractures and account for 85% of older adult injury-related hospitalizations. In 2018, the prevalence of fall-related injuries was higher amongst women than men. Based on the 2018 data, the average length of stay for a fall-related hospitalization was 4 to 5 days longer than the average for all-cause hospitalizations. Over 1/3 of older adults admitted to long-term care was a result of a fall-related hospitalization. Said the word hospitalization quite a bit there. What are the options for seniors as they age? There are a couple of options to stay in your home. Funded, as Marie was talking, funded and private care. Sorry, this is for home care. So funded and private home care and retrofitting your home to ensure that you are not living at risk. Each provincial healthcare system approaches senior care a little differently. Here in BC, seniors are offered scheduled home care for some of the aging-related changes in mobility and daily living. Many of these care services allow for you to stay in your home for a limited time and include services like assistance with bathing, medication reminders, compression stockings on and off, and meal preparation. All this support requires an assessment by a case manager, and anyone can call the health authority where they live and request an assessment for this. These services can be a very good temporary solution in the short term, and many residents in retirement communities also use the services as they need, so they can age in place in an independent living retirement community. I know we have many, many residents that do still have home care coming in. Alternatively, you can hire the services of a private care company to provide daily assisted living care or companion care, meal prep, cleaning, shopping, socialization. Depending on the level of support that you need, private care aides range about $30 to $40 per hour for an HCA, which is a healthcare assistant. It's approximately $65 to $75 per hour to have a private nurse come in. And then there's also live-in care options. A live-in caregiver can be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a month. So that does get quite pricey. Should you require minimal to moderate support in your home, the cost can be quite reasonable, but as care needs change over time, the cost of private care around the clock quickly adds up to the most expensive option, as you can see. Retrofitting your home with various mobility and daily living supports may be necessary, and we don't ever want you to feel ashamed of needing these supports for your daily active living. As your health needs change, it's important to also consider living in a retirement community. Next, let's talk about why planning your retirement living journey is so important. So why plan? As cognition deteriorates, it becomes harder to make a transition and get settled into a routine. Often we hear people say, I'm so incredibly healthy. I walk 10 kilometers a day. I swim, I hike, I golf, I dance. I won't need to think about senior living for many, many years. So why would I plan now? So even if you feel you are currently managing well on your own and don't require any additional assistance with things like maintaining your home or carrying out daily tasks like cooking, cleaning, shopping, it never hurts to plan for the future and communicate your wishes to your loved ones. Waiting for changes with your current health or mobility shouldn't be the benchmark on which to base your readiness for retirement living, especially if you have a desire to relieve some of your daily responsibilities or tasks so you can spend more time on the things that you enjoy most. We often communicate that it is better to be proactive and begin exploring options and discuss wishes with your family when you are in good health and better equipped to make an informed decision. We also like to communicate with folks that in the same way you plan for, say, your estate and let someone know your wishes, You should also plan your senior living journey and include the information as part of your estate planning. Without a plan, you may have a medical event that makes returning to your home a risky situation, and medical professionals may intervene and make that decision for you. The worst time to start planning or to make a decision is when you're in crisis. So how can you start planning? Let's talk about that. How do we advise people to start planning? So the very first step is starting the conversation. What are your wishes? What do you want your senior living journey to look like? What is most important in your life? Do you have any traditions or routines that are important to your happiness right now? Ask the question, if I could change something about my life, what would it be? When we ask the question, what is living your best life? We will often ask, what does that look like? Does it involve family or friends? Does it involve community or support? Who do you want to help make your decision? Once you start this train of thought, you will naturally begin to gravitate towards the resources that will suit your senior living journey. We spoke about many of the options for senior living, from retrofitting your home to private and government-supported home care programs to retirement living. Understanding how you can live your best life in each of these scenarios, and then identifying the 3 best choices of supports for each is paramount in preparing for your future. For the retirement living part of the journey, most retirement residences like to invite you to come for a dining experience to see what a retirement living community looks like, who lives in the communities, and how would this life fit your lifestyle. I know lots of people come into the communities and they're surprised by what they come and see. So what are the benefits of retirement living? With the support of dedicated staff, retirement communities can offer a safe and rewarding lifestyle to seniors. There are typically a few key pillars of services that are offered. There's peace of mind, staff you can trust, a lifestyle you can enjoy, peace of mind for your families as well. You get to dine very well, nice meals, choice in daily menus, healthy and nutritious options. Active living programs and activities are designed to meet the different areas of wellness and work to enrich and engage residents physically, socially, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and through vocational pursuits, so residents stay healthy, vibrant, inspired, and fulfilled. Of course, there's also care and services. Retirement communities want their residents to live with comfort, dignity, peace of mind. Care and services can be personalized and added as your needs change. So as we mentioned earlier, I talked about resources and professionals to help. So for the planning journey, we have an excellent guide actually on our website. So it's our personal favorite resource. It's called Exploring Retirement Living, which I believe you'll get a copy of. We have used this many times in the community to support older adults and help facilitate the planning process. It will be, yes, in the resource guide. This guide talks about readiness, planning. It also has a checklist, which is great. It's just fantastic. We can also help you with resources and trusted professionals. We work, I know with my position, with a lot of partners that we trust at each location in different cities, like a downsizer, which is similar to a moving company, but a lot more detailed. They'll meet with you, you know, help you sell things in your house while you're downsizing. They will, Marie, can you jump in on the downsizers, the more specifically what they do exactly?
Yeah,
I know they do a lot of things.
They do. They're so helpful, and I know quite often when you get to the point where you need to make that move, it is so overwhelming. So they'll come in and they'll work with you from, you know, packing your like helping you to pack up what you'd like to take, you know, distributing some of those really special things maybe to, you know, an antique dealer or somewhere. They'll help you make the move and then even unpack on the other end. Mm-hmm. So they really work from you from start to finish. And each downsizer is a little bit different in what they offer in their packages, but it's just, yeah, it's a one-stop shop for sure.
Yeah. I know the one that I worked with one of the seniors, they were blown away because they had a china cabinet and then they recreated their china cabinet and put every figurine in the same spot because they take pictures at their old house and then they set it up for them. So there's a lot of great downsizers out there. But we also work with real estate agents, notary public, financial planners, lawyers. So please reach out to us or maybe through Lori, because we have so many in every different cities across BC. So depending where you live, if you are looking for a trusted professional recommendation, and we certainly might have some, you can reach out to me and I can help you with that. Yeah, so just to summarize a little bit of the presentation, we chatted about caregiving, caregiver burnout, the sandwich generation. There are a variety of reasons why you may begin to research retirement living options, from health diagnosis to life-changing events. Senior living journey planning consists of decisions about home care or retrofitting your home to retirement living options based on a variety of lifestyle choices and wants. We chatted a bit about the differences between retirement living and long-term care. Marie also talked about funded versus private pay options, why you should plan your journey and communicate your wishes. We chatted about how do you start planning, and we talked a little bit about different resources. So yeah, thank you so much. We would like to thank Lori and the Alzheimer's Society and everybody for having us. And I believe we're going to open it up to questions, I think, at this time.
There, thank you very, very much. It's been a very, very robust chat box as always, and I haven't even had time to post in the chat box, but thank you everybody for sharing your experiences, your questions, and your concerns. It's absolutely true that you, the people who are participating in our webinars, are really the experts in supporting someone living with dementia. We, Marie, Jenny, myself, and other people who come in and speak, we're experts in our own areas, but that doesn't in any way negate the information that you guys have and share. So thank you. There has been questions coming in, some of which you've touched on a bit, but I'm going to go back and share some of the questions, even if they're kind of, you covered them, just to kind of loop it back. One thing a couple of people shared is again, as Marie alluded to, there's a lot of people who their person is saying, I don't want to talk about what's coming up. I don't want to move out of my home. One person said they'll carry me out of here in a pine box, which I think is not an uncommon experience for caregivers. Do you guys have any advice for how families can negotiate that kind, or navigate, not negotiate, navigate that kind of conversation, or where they might go to get resources to kind of start that conversation?
Would you like me to take this one?
Sure. I was just going to say about just coming, if they're needing to go to retirement living, I know there's a big misconception, I guess you would say, on how, because a lot of people don't want to leave their homes. And I've talked to many seniors in retirement living that are exactly that way. But they're just so much happier once they do get there, and they wish they did it sooner. That's mostly the feedback that I get almost all the time, is I wish I did this sooner. So it's just, but it is the initially trying to change is difficult. I think change is the hardest thing for a senior, changing your environment and your home and your routine. So yeah, but Marie, if you wanted to maybe talk on that.
No, that's a great foundation for sure, Jenny. And what I was going to say, and I know this is the same in all retirement communities, is that the goal is to always have family be family, right? We want those relationships to stay, mother and daughter, husband and wife, and let folks who are used to having these conversations support you in that. So you're not alone. And it can be as simple as, if you can encourage, whether it's your mother or your father, your husband or wife, to come in and just, for a half hour, quick little look around. That retirement living consultant, sales manager, they're trained to be able to have those conversations in a very neutral way. So it's not all on you to have to present, a reason why this might not be a good idea. Because, there's folks who do it every single day, multiple times a day with, although, you are absolutely the expert, there are some very sort of key points that are brought up from that, that professional, right, in those retirement communities. It can be a way to start the conversation where, you can stay that family member and let somebody else kind of do some of the hard work. I mean, it's not as simple as that. I totally understand. And there are also some experts out there, like there are some books on starting the conversation. There are some resources out there that can really help. Amy Dupree, I think we mentioned on a few occasions, she does a really great job in kind of laying that foundation too.
Yeah, and we do have like Amy's main website because there's a lot of articles, so they might relate to everybody in different ways. And then there's the specific ones on caregiving, but she's got all sorts of things. So I think the link to her main page, and then you can select the articles that relate to you.
I mean, and I think the big thing though too is like even with a quick visit to any retirement community, like you're not making any commitment of any sort, right? It's and if you can help your loved one to really sort of, if that can sink in for them, right? This is just a very initial, like, let's just go take a look. There's no commitment or anything, but we have heard so many times at how surprising it is when you walk into a retirement community and just the level of engagement, and it's nothing like they maybe thought it would be. It's quite a pleasant surprise for most when they walk through the doors. Yeah.
One thing that came up that a couple of people said, yes, I have that same question. Can you have memory care help in independent living?
Yeah, so I can answer that if you like, Jenny. So unfortunately, there's not a black or a white answer for that because it can look so different for everybody, on their journey for memory care. So it honestly depends how much they need. Where it gets sort of unsafe for the person is if they're maybe going to walk out the doors, right, and not know where they're headed. They might not be able to, manage the clock as well as they used to, right? If they sort of maybe don't know what, maybe like there's a few things that are kind of at like a non-negotiable where independent living is just not going to be the safest place for them. But there's such a continuum, right? And so the best thing to do is, again, go with your loved one to visit so that, the professional at the home can actually assess, is this going to be an okay fit, right? Are they going to be safe here? Is this going to be the best kind of care? But there are, when it does get to the place where it's not safe for them to be in independent living, then they do have to find a specific home or dedicated just to memory living, or a home with a dedicated memory living floor. I hope that helps to answer.
And I just wanted to add just a personal story on that, because of my Nana, who I kind of mentioned earlier, she has Alzheimer's. She was in the early stages maybe 4 years ago, but still okay to be independent. So she went to retirement living as independent living. After a couple of years, she did amazing. But then, you know, my mom would notice, like the blister packs, and she's not taking her meds. So then we hired caregivers to come in. So they would come and remind her of the medications. For about a year, she did that. But then she got lost one time. So she can no longer live in independent living. So luckily, there's memory care at the same place. So we're hoping to get her in there, or long-term care if we can't get her in memory care. So yeah, it was very hard to decide, because, you know, she doesn't want to leave independent, but it's just a safety thing. So
there is questions around, so will I lose my freedom, is a question that came in. Thought that was kind of interesting.
I'll take that one, Marie.
Sure, yeah. You know, this is funny enough, like this is truly a question that we get so much. And it's again, it's sort of like when people think about moving into a retirement community or long-term care anywhere, they think about losing their freedom, right? What am I going to lose? And it's actually the opposite. So in a retirement community, we had mentioned, you know, you still do everything that you've been doing, that you want to do. You have your family and friends come and visit you and engage with you in your home. It's your home. You can come and go as you please. And it really is a way to actually gain back some of your freedom, because you lose a lot of freedom when, say, you're in a home and maybe on your own, and you know there's just so much to do. You start to get overwhelmed, and really can, you know, things can start to go downhill maybe a little bit quicker. But when you move into a retirement community, you have so much done for you that you actually gain back the ability to do a lot of what you love. And then even in a long-term care or memory care environment, you still get to do so many things that you want to do. Families can come and go as they please and visit. And, you know, I know that all of the homes really work towards everybody living the life they want to live where they are.
Yeah. So, and one of the things I find that people love is if they, for example, have lost their driver's license and they're not mobile, so they're relying on family when they're living at home, and then they move to retirement. Not all, but most of them have buses or transportation services, like weekly or a couple times a week, going out and different activities, whether it's like to the park or even the mall, or just different things. So there's a lot more freedom than they had maybe at home in that aspect.
Thank you. Okay, this is someone has put forward a scenario, and so you may not be able to address this, and I certainly will chime in with my knowledge if not, but the scenario is sudden broken hip happens tonight. What do wait list times or onboarding from initial contact now from initial contact to move in time now, specifically for private pay, what might that look like? And they assure won't hold you to the answers, but looking to understand. And I will talk a little bit about the public pay side of things, unless you want to talk about that as well.
Yeah, we can cover the private pay for sure. And that's a great question. So the answer is actually, if you had a loved one that broke their hip this evening, you could be moved into an independent living suite as early as first thing tomorrow. In some of our Chartwell homes, and I know even with some of the other retirement communities, for independent living, you can often find availability fairly quickly, depending on where you want. So just specifically for some of our homes, they are full, could be up to 3 months, but there are some homes, say, in some areas that do have some suite availability. Now, the broken hip part of it, it would just the senior, whoever is moving in, would most likely have to get some home care support in place right away too. If they were going to move into an independent living environment, it kind of would depend a little bit on, getting some supports in place in that environment. Long-term care is a little bit different. Long-term care for private pay, and this is in, our Chartwell homes, but also we know a lot of the other retirement communities, long-term care private pay can be up to about a year wait, sometimes a little bit more. So depending on what the broken hip situation was, it would vary a little bit. Hope that helps answer a bit.
Right. Yeah, and for public pay, as you mentioned, it's a different situation because there are, if in the situation that Mike put forward, the broken hip, the person would go into hospital and would be supported in hospital, and it would depend on the area of the province that you're in. Each of the health authorities has a slightly different process, but usually there would be an assessment as to whether the person was safe to go home again. If the answer is no, they could be moved to it's called a PATH unit. It's a sort of a temporary, sort of like a cross between hospital and long-term care. It's kind of a temporary place. And then the social worker at the hospital would work with the families to discuss where is kind of the best locations. However, often they will be encouraged to take the first available bed, again, just depending on what area of the province that you are in. So I would encourage you to connect, and I know I sound like a broken record, but to connect with the First Link Dementia Helpline, or somebody posted the Family Caregivers of BC support line. Either of those are really good places to kind of talk to in terms of being able to sort of plan for who you can reach out to and for asking questions around the public system. And there are various places that you can connect for information on private pay. This was more a statement than a question, but I think it would be really valuable to hear from the two of you. Someone says, I am a reluctant spouse, reluctant to start a process to get on a waiting list for sure. So I think that that speaks very much to the just the wide range of concerns and challenges around this transition, the loss of our own role, and you guys touched on that a little bit at the beginning, but just wondered if you wanted to say anything to that comment.
I'm sorry, the reluctant spouse.
She says, I am a reluctant spouse, reluctant to start a process to get on a waiting list.
For themselves. Okay.
Well, I would imagine it's a waiting list for their spouse. He or she is reluctant to start that process for whatever. Right.
Yeah, well, I think talking to like an expert, like Marie was saying, are retirement living consultants that are in, and they're at any retirement community. So, but they are like specialized in that. So just even maybe herself, maybe taking a meeting one-on-one and just sitting down and addressing any concerns and getting some comfort in that way. Because I know it can be really scary. So just maybe even having an initial conversation, and it's not scary to go in. It's like usually comfy and probably get tea or coffee or something, and just addressing all the questions that they might have just as a start, just as an ease, because it's like you don't want to be too overwhelmed right at the beginning. So even just having that conversation or over the phone might be even more comfortable. But that's just one thing. I'm sure Marie, you have other things.
No, I think that's, you hit it right on the nose, Jenny. I think that there's no commitment to start a conversation with somebody who knows and who has seen, the hesitation, right? We don't typically see folks kind of running through our doors like, hey, when can I move in, right? It's because something has happened. There's reluctance, there's loss. Um, there's so much emotion around it, and there's experts in all of these homes who have seen so many different situations, and can really, although everyone is unique, can kind of help you through it with no commitment, right, as an initial conversation. And like Jenny said, you know it's it's always like the folks that are in these positions to help, they're caring, they're compassionate, they're understanding, they're empathetic. So you're going to be met with somebody who is going to just sit across the table from you and listen and hear what you have to say and spend the time with you that you need. They're wonderful, wonderful people that are in these positions to help. And I encourage, and a phone call maybe to start, right? But yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be scary. I know for me, like I'm, for example, not the same thing, but looking at getting a new vehicle, and I'm like, I don't want to go test drive. They're going to pressure me, and I get really nervous about that stuff. It's not like that at all. So maybe that would, because I know people think that it's going to be, they want to have sign something or get them to pressure them to sign, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can just go in for information, and they'll be glad to listen to you and hear your concerns and just give you the information that you're looking for. And then another thing, I don't know if the lady or the person that commented has already gone and looked at different places, but just even getting out there and going for like a meal and a tour and that's it. Just keep going to your different ones and then having your favorites and then maybe returning after a month or 2 or 3 months and see if you still like it, even just visiting it and you get more comfortable. And then you might want to start the conversation and go deeper after that.
Great. Thank you very much. Where is memory living available?
Yeah, so as I had mentioned, unfortunately, like so the need for and the awareness is growing, and I'm so happy to see that. And there are places being built, and there are places that are setting aside floors, right, in their community for memory living. There is a wonderful, and it's a large community in Langley, called Langley, the village actually, and it's a whole community for memory living. Chartwell, for instance, we have in one of our Langley homes has a whole floor dedicated to memory living. They're kind of spread throughout the lower mainland. There's one being built right now in North Vancouver that's going to have some suites dedicated just to memory living. In White Rock, there's an Amica in White Rock that has some dedicated memory living. So they are around, just depending on the location. Yeah, those are some of the sort of the main ones that I know of kind of in this area. Yeah.
Here's what I like. I like to keep to myself. Will I be forced to participate in activities?
Jenny, you want to take that one?
Oh, yeah, sure. No, of course you can do your own thing. A lot of people come in, they're like, I'm not going to want to do any of this stuff, right? So, but surprisingly enough, most of the people that happens, they come down for dinner or lunch and they see things happening and they get to know people, and over time they'll maybe want to participate and become more social, because a lot of times if you're living alone and you're isolating, that's just how you're used to being, but maybe not how you're meant to be or how you actually want to be. But you can be alone, stay in your room as much as you want or come down as much as you want. Like there's nobody knocking on your door saying it's time for bingo. So it's just up to you how much or how little you want to participate in things.
Great. Somebody asks a really good question, and it's going to be different whether it's depending on the level. Marie, you shared about the different types of senior living that is available. So I know that the answer to this question will change, but someone says, if we get on a waiting list, how does it work if we're not quite ready at the time our name comes up? Are we then put at the end of the list? And this has gotten a number of thumbs up and good question. And so I don't think she's alone in this question.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. So I'll speak to private pay specifically. And, you know, what happens when you call in and you make an inquiry, you start the process, you know, you build that relationship with that consultant, and you can set up whatever kind of interaction and the timing that you want. So you might go in and say, you know what, there's nothing I want to do for at least a year, and that's fine. That retirement living consultant will then put you on a bit of a follow-up for a year, or maybe 6 months, or maybe 3 months, or maybe you would just like to receive some newsletters to keep engaged. So you can set up whatever cadence you want with that retirement living consultant. And when you're ready, you know, to kind of go on a list, then yeah, your name goes on. And no, it's not like if something comes up, you know, you sort of go to the bottom. What they might say is, yeah, when you're ready, just give me a call and we'll put you back on. Because typically with our wait lists, right, again, with the independent living, we can work through them. You know, sometimes if you put your name on a list, something can come up, you know, in a couple of weeks or a month, depending on what kind of suite you're looking for. But it doesn't work where it's like, nope, you're going to the bottom and we're not going to talk to you sort of thing. It's like you set up that cadence that you want with whoever you're working with. And that's typically what it's like at you know, all of the homes. I hope that helps to answer that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. And I think that is indeed one of the big differences between public pay and private pay. Understandably, there is a tremendous pressure on the public care system, particularly for long-term care. And so, and again, it's a little different in terms of each of the health authorities. In the Lower Mainland, of course, we have such a big population here and a limited number of beds. And so if you go on a wait list for long-term care and are not ready to move, generally the different health authorities have different ways of responding, whether you come off the list, whether you go to the bottom of the list. So those, when we're talking about the public system, that would be something that you would need to talk over with your case manager. So I hope that helped. Do rentals in private residencies fall under Residential Tenancy Act? Mike, I'm not sure. Are you meaning rentals in like somewhere like Chartwell, where we're talking about senior living? And if that case, what do you guys say? Does it fall under the Residential Tenancy Act?
Definitely Marie to take that one.
Yeah. So thanks for the question, Mike. And you know, I'll answer for Chartwell. So a budgeting question primarily for sure. So one of the things that, of course, we have all experienced over these last, you know, couple of years is just the incredible inflation, right? You go and buy a block of cheese and it's, you know, double of what it used to be. And because we provide so many other things other than just, you know, rent for the home, right? We provide food, we provide care, we provide activities, We provide, you know, a pendant system for security, all of those things. It's very different than, say, a regular kind of rental. And so when we have to, you know, pay more for everything, and I mean, it's all gone up, right? Like even, you know, interest rates for you know, for mortgages and everything like that. We do have to pass some of those costs on to current residents and onto new residents moving in. Because if we don't, what starts to happen is that, you know, the quality of everything just starts to deteriorate. And that's not something that we, you know, we want. And I know, you know, other retirement communities, right, we all strive to provide the highest level of care and support and services. And so what you know, you will find is that there are increases that are above the Residential Tenancy Act increases in some years where it's necessary to, you know, to kind of be able to continue to provide quality of care and services. Hope that helps to answer.
Oh, Mike says it was his assumption that you were not under RTA. So thank you very much for answering.
Thanks.
Last question so far that I can see is, and again, a good one. I'm a vegetarian. Will I still have a variety of options?
You want to take that one, Jenny?
I guess we can both speak. I'll speak on what I know about the food in the homes, just based on talking with some of our food service managers. Absolutely. So a lot of places do have vegetarian options. Even some people are talking vegan. I've had a couple that, you know, wanted to come in, and their main concern was the food and that they wouldn't be able to have options that they like. But you know, you can meet if you have special diets, whether it's vegetarian or gluten-free or any of those things. Yeah, you're welcome to come in and meet with our food service manager, and they can chat with you. There's definitely ways of working around nutrition. It's getting more and more as, you know, the generations go. There's more food conscious, more even just allergies and different things. So we have to adjust. We have to, you know, adjust with the times. So there's many people with food restrictions already across our homes, and I'm sure all retirement homes in BC. So yeah, there's always options and things that we can do for sure. I don't know, is there anything else you want to add, Marie?
No, I think that's great. I mean, every home is a little bit different. But you know, it's typically like if you're to go to a restaurant and sometimes they have their special, you know, I know like at Chartwell, right, we have like a main feature, and then there's an a la carte where you can have many other different options for both lunch and dinner. And a lot of homes and retirement communities are the same, where we know we have to offer those options now, because our seniors are definitely getting more savvy when it comes to, you know, diet. Well, we all are, right? As a culture, I think we're very much more aware of what we're eating, and you know, homes want to be able to respect that and manage it. So, yeah.
And I was just going to say quick, just even different cultures. We've noticed a lot in certain of our homes, and you know, they're working with whether it's certain cultures not eating pork or just wanting certain things, and we have to figure out, because there's multiple different cultures in there, but we're, you know, having different foods in different weeks, and it's going really well, and everybody's trying different foods. So that's something that we have incorporated as well.
Yeah, and certainly our experience with the public system is that is true there as well, particularly around the vegetarian option, gluten-free option. Absolutely, as families meeting with the food services manager at the various long-term care homes or independent living, absolutely, that is still open to you. So I don't see any last comments or questions coming in. Lots of thanks for today's topic. And I just really want to especially thank the two of you for the presentation was wonderful and rich. And your openness and willingness to engage with all of the questions at the end has really made it special. So I really do appreciate your time. And thank you, everybody. Someone says, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the, are you a caregiver? Turns out I am. So thank you for sharing that, Mike. All right.
Thank you so much.
And have a good rest of your afternoon, everyone. And please don't hesitate to call the Dementia Helpline if you have any questions or concerns. Thanks again, Marie and Jenny.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.